Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. This is Julie with JFQ Freedom. Would like to thank the Lord and give him credit for blessing me with these words that go out to the nations and kingdoms of the earth, to root out and pull down, destroy and throw down, or to build and to plant. So he was doing a play on words here for y'all and for me. So he said, suck it up, buttercup, 'cause this ride about to get, well, wonky, folks. To put it plainly, miss, for she take that almost miss of a trumpery failure and flop on the political score. Could have happened, bro. But nah, man. Ain't like I don't see they satanic plans for what they. Very sinister, dog. And we mean like using trumpery him, bro, to crush the shiza out of yo. Dog. Not that. Not that revival thingy you. Here, I had a vision of the book from Animal Farm. But well, old as hell books, man, and how sometimes them little sheepies is bleatin', while the rest of you piggies is turnin' into, well, a pig in my view, bro, if you go on and keep rubbin' elbows with. So you're right, bro, bein' slick is very important for yo. But yo image, man, gettin' a little tainted in my little chickadee's view of no. But she like very sensitive, Bob, to any fakester stuff sauce, man, that all them politicians is pullin' on one another of no. Here I saw two guys in suits shaking hands with one another. And bro, so how's the wifey, dude? Hate that question, don't you, man? So just back off for now, man. Judging 'em all so harshly of no. 'Cause as long as you rubbin' elbows with, think here they were pointing at you. Exactly, bro. Judging you too, man, for all that, well, suaveness, to put it plainly, man. And you, dog, trying to please they, just for a time, man. Just as short as hell time left for all these. Yeah, darlin'. So it's called a game, sis, when a pretty little woman implying she got like total control of a situation, darlin', when you really all shaking in your boots of no. Just so I know, darlin', that admitting your failures to like anyone, miss, is kinda a no-go in like many a you ladies' books is, hun. But still, doll, and when it come to those important Madame Bovary-ish style talks, hun, and he winked. If you're not familiar, Madame Bovary is a French novel, and there's a modern version with. She basically made her husband go broke, but it was like she got tricked, sort of, and towards the end, she decided it'd be better to kill herself instead of facing the debt and facing the problem that she had created, which was basically to almost disinherit her husband and cause him to be facing time in the poorhouse, if they had the poorhouse at that time, in 1800s France. And he winked. Oh, she know hey literature plans. Of the classics at least, man, quite well for a. Well, dog, so before you judge our little chickadee son for reading all that, the Lord was pointing at you. Oh, it were the men, bro, in pastimes, dog, who was supposed to read, versus sleepin' with all them. Exactly, bro. Education and a half, man. So let's just leave it at. And now, dear honey bunnies, if you is one doll, if you could please, hun, start prayin' my little chick through this December, hun, 'cause she'll. Well, dog, so she kinda been seein' his satanic like prosper or something, dude, despite no death threats hanging over his. So he like a world leader, bro. So of course, man, they's a few men who would love nothing better, boys, than to snuff out his. Oh, he taking it out on her, miss. You're right, chick. And there, doll. The Lord did this to you. Like, and there, doll. So we gonna have to ax ya, chick, to back off my little gal for not sharing they. Heard 'em, doll. And yeah, boys, so we mean satanic secrets galore, folks. Online, man, if you care to go swooping into they. Territory of a lifetime, darlin'. And one that really shouldn't interest ya so much of. But well, so it's system failure time finally, miss. And them Satanists is licking they fingers like. Here I had a vision of them licking the fingers, and the fingers were black and they had long nails. Finally, boys, we gonna get to kill all these. Well, dude, and he winked. So dingle bat the nice word we use to describe they, while they really all. Exactly, dog. Exactly how they talk about you, son. So just shh. Slow it down, dude. I'm calling them, well, out, bro. To put it plainly, man. 'Cause soon and very soon, bub. That was a reference to that song. And he winked. Oh, she been listening, bub, to like yo songs, man. To see if they changed of no. And he winked. Your choice, man. What little prophetechy chickadees you listen to of no. But me, man. And let's make sure, bub, we get our little P's and Q's in order, dog, when it come to all that about to rock your prophetic world of no. And a doozy, man. Seriously, bro. The shiza that about to take over your planet of no. But do she care to talk about it, folks, when she know that? Yeah, Lord, so I think, bub, that Susie Q and her boyfriend would for sure fall into that trap of hating you, Lord, if they saw all the chaos you about to let loose on the planet of no. Here the Lord pointed at the Satanists. Oh, it'll be them, dog, causing all the destruction of no. So, nah, man, ain't like we don't care about yo. Just a tiny little bit, man. And he winked. Exactly, bro. Love y'all much, dear ones. But, well, Satanist, bro. And how they kinda like to know they gonna have a satanic heyday of no. And get to blame it all on me, bro. Side note, I have a whole chart that I'm going to show for the commentary today. And the one thing I forgot to say is that it all is supposed to be a secret, how the Satanists have their fingers and hands in everything, including like the weather, because they want people to blame God for, things like that. So, and all kinds of stuff. So they want to operate in secrecy if they can, but they still want to party as it all crashes and burns and their phoenix rises. So I think they want to party in secret till the Antichrist rises, and then it'll be a real, like, satanic party, but I don't know if I'll be around then to see it. Just guessing on that. Okay, so they're gonna blame everything on the Lord. Exactly, man. Ridiculous, Bob. But it all in my word of no. Ain't it, chick? And nah, doc. That book don't explain half of all that about to. So yes, doll, there's a few more mysteries, bub, that need to be explained by my... Before we move on into the foam of... Here I had a vision of a room. It had a wooden floor, and the foam was higher than a man's head. Like a foam party, except people were dressed normal. Well, dog, so let's hope that cloudery thingy that about to surround you actually me, miss, and not no murderous as hell, blinded by the demonic in you, to the point you go, well, so what a little old German word, bub, that she associate with her. Oh, it is so-called, miss, so just down, chicken, thinking she deserved the death penalty for. Really dull, a little regard thrown hay way of no. From time to time, chicken, and not every condemned day like you thinkin', miss. And can't, doll, bring hayself to contact no, 'cause she might get, like, rejected or something, miss, and he winked. Oh, she's sensitive, doll, real sensitive to they. Therefore she get a breaky wakey and soon, mum, from all this. But first, boys, we gotta take care of, well, so it like prophecy number 1 in Hayview, man, and one that loomin' on up in the Julie sky that's, well, so it her life, chicken, so just down be, thinkin' she relish all this. Drama of a lifetime, folks, and one little story that won't be found in my one day of. The commentary is, like I said, a little chart that I made, so I say little, I think it made Mr. Z mad that I did this, so anyway, but I am getting close to a rough December month, so I'm just like trying to think of all those, like, if this really was the end of my life, what would I do type scenario, and yeah, smirking a little too much at some of his antics that he sends my way, which makes him really angry. So, but there's some of you that are still, yeah. I don't know what you're going to do with the info, but you're still able to like produce content that's not shadow banned and that's pretty cool. So, anyway, or even if you're not a producer, um, we still each have our little area of influence that's just the attacks of the demonic prove that they don't want anyone to be influencing anyone, do they? That's always made me feel special in my life before all this happened was the focus that the demonic had on me at night, mostly talking about nightmares. So anyway, um, that has changed for me a little bit the past couple years, but try not to brag about that. It's like one benefit, and I have this mountain of trouble over here. Uh, Other benefits too, but anyway. All right, we're gonna swing into the commentary, and I'll see y'all for the next video on. I'll see y'all for the next video on Friday. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so as a addendum to today, I don't know, like if the Lord wants people to like me to share what I know. I did this week. I did like a little chart on how I think it all works. So it's mostly economic based and how the money runs in the world. Um, but sometimes it seems like people at the top have it all. And that's basically the image that the media tries to project for someone like a celebrity who Taylor Swift comes to mind. She seems to literally have it all. But every person who gets promoted to that level, who plays the game, has a price to pay. So basically, I'm going to try to do this in a way that's not too annoying to the Satanist, and that's just to describe the chart that I drew here. So here in the middle, we have Mr. Promoted. As soon as he makes it to that level, he is under surveillance usually, and he's in the club. And he pretends to care about Joe, who is over on the side. We have our average Joe, where I did not draw a little person. But he pretends to care about Joe. But Mr. Promoted has a hand around his torso, and that is the satanic hand, basically, that is controlling him. So from here, Mr. Promoted makes a lot of money to do sometimes a very basic job, which other people work very hard. The Lord did reveal to me just this week that teachers have been basically screwed, and the Lord told me that the elites designed it that way, that teachers would be underpaid, and some of the most frustrated, economically speaking, people in the Western Hemisphere, even though they do one of the hardest jobs. And that is designed to undermine the educational system. So back to our little chart. Mr. Promoted has to do something with all that money that he's getting. Let's say he makes 200,000 euros per month traveling to some location in Europe just so he can sit there and talk with a few people. And someone else takes all his notes for him and tells him what he needs to talk about. And someone else writes all his speeches. And then he gets to fly back in a private jet to wherever he actually lives. And he has all this money and all this time. So what's he going to do? He's going to blow it, some of it. He owns something. So we're going to go up to the left side onto the property taxes side. And he owns a lot of stuff, but he still has to give a huge portion back to the people at the top. So that goes into a little pool. Actually, it's a huge pool of just like tax money, okay? At least here in Austria, I believe is the way it works. So again, we're going to keep it just kind of shadowy and in general because I don't know all the details of the system. But in Austria, they tell us what they spend all the money from the government on, but there's another section that I believe is kept secret. And of course, the amount of money that they make is also, I believe, a secret. So anyway, the shadow elites can dip their sticky hands into that pool if they want to. You can think of Winnie the Pooh with his hands covered in honey going into the honey pot. Mr. Promoted also doesn't care. He doesn't have that many morals, so he doesn't care if he pays for like something to do with human trafficking or luxury items, maybe even knockoff luxury items. He can dip his hand or money into any industry he wants to, black market stuff. But actually, what Mr. Promoted sometimes forgets, but maybe he'll figure it out a little bit later in the game when it's too late for him to leave, and that's that all these industries are controlled by the shadow elites at the top, including the stock market. Of course, he knows about that. But he's basically given, and we move over to the little downward arrow from the top. And I put little ants here because I didn't know how to draw trinkets. But basically, he gets trinkets, and those are the little ants carrying. You can think of a little coin on top of each ant as it brings it back to Mr. Promoted. So the average Joe looks over at Mr. Promoted and thinks, oh my gosh, he's making so much money. But if you think of it from the perspective from the top, it's just trinkets to these billionaires at the top who are actually racketeering and getting even more of Mr. Promoted's money going right back into their coffers or wallets. Okay, and I basically did a runoff of what's under surveillance. So the surveillance side of the chart is basically moving over to the average Joe who's desperate for money and maybe doesn't really have that many morals. So he's going to go ahead and say yes to being part of the surveillance mob that takes care of watching someone like Mr. Promoted. He's also going to be under surveillance, watching surveillance for another group, which I put under Rogue One. Yes, it's a Star Wars reference. Um, Basically, any journalist who's thinking for themselves, truthers, TV stations, content producers, and Christians. So those are the main ones that I chose. I know like some of these are secular and some are Christian. But either way, whether a person is secular or not, if they're going against the grain and they're exposing stuff that shouldn't be exposed, they will have these little markers are like cell phones taking pictures. They will have people watching them at all times. I didn't reveal this yet, but and maybe they'll start editing the TV a little bit more now that I'm saying it. I'm not sure who in Hollywood or the TV stations is actually watching my channel. But if you watch news reportage, there's always someone with a cell phone like in the background. Sometimes they're even swinging the cell phone. That's especially true for like reality TV shows and stuff. You will see the people with the cell phones, and you might argue they're just randomly there, but I would say those TV stations and crews that are out on the town doing stuff are actually under surveillance as well. Okay, this is really hard to prove, but if you'll look behind this group of people that's meeting, the two guys and the girl, we have a group of people that are together, I believe, that could be cronies. The guy that I circled, keep an eye on his cell phone activity. So he's standing there, and you notice they're very interested in these people being filmed. You'll watch them make eye contact with the camera a couple of times, which is normal. People are interested if someone's being filmed on the street. And you watch, he moves towards the target. He starts with the body language. And then here, the cell phone actually swung out a little bit. It's swinging, and he's holding the camera perfectly so that the camera is visible. And then he puts it into his pocket after he has a direct shot of the target, in my view, and then puts it into his pocket there. Again, still looking at the target. As I said, very hard to prove. The whole system is designed to be that way, so take it or leave it. That was the closest thing I could find to an example. And then we have some of them getting silenced, and Mr. Promoted actually has enough power sometimes to silence people if he wants. Very famous example, of course, is Hillary Rodham Clinton, who has silenced some of her husband's dissenters and some of her own dissenters. So they do have the power to do that. So let's not just point the finger all the way to the top when it comes to people being killed, innocent people being killed for whatever they did to expose something. So from there, we have the music industry also quietly, heavily surveillanced. Anyone who has their hands that are stuck into the big money pot with the elites is slightly protected. So if there is a Christian content producer who's helping make a lot of money for the elites, then they're kind of protected in a way, but there's usually someone looking to take over their spot. And oh yeah, I also wanted to say if there's someone creating content and they happen to be friends with someone who might be a Satanist, and this Satanist is like the little angel on the shoulder whispering things into their ear, and this content creator actually starts saying some of those things, that can also be a form of protection for this Christian person who's a little bit deceived. So they like that a lot. So then we move over to Mr. Joe, Average Joe. Unfortunately, he's under a psyop. All of us have been. I feel my eyes are opening, but even though they're open, I'm still stuck. So I should be the owner of like a house by now. All of us truly, any of us who have been trying to be good citizens and work and all that, should, after 10 or 20 years in the system, and I started working when I was 15, should be able to own a house. But that's not the case, is it? Uh, we have we have these plans to take people's property going back hundreds of years, if not thousands. So let's not pretend that that's a new idea. As great as Joseph was, he took over all of Israel's property back in the day, if y'all remember. So when they couldn't pay for their food. So let's go to the average Joe. He gets a little bit of money from the large pool of taxes that's in most of the socialist style countries in Europe, and maybe a little bit of little bonus checks that you have over in America. And as far as Asia goes, I think they also do something more similar to a socialist system. And then, of course, gosh, I don't even want to mention Africa. It seems like each man for himself out there. Y'all are some very tough people, I have to say. So this is all a psyop over here on Joe's side, and the psyop mostly is that if you believe it or dream it, it will come true. If you work hard enough, you will be rewarded. That type of saying worked 50 years ago, I would say, maybe for my parents' generation. And I'm about to be 37. My mom is 24 years older than me, so that generation, they work hard, they get something. The one underneath kind of is just getting trinkets, and the one underneath that is desperate to make cash in the worst of ways. You can think of that if you like. Different industries y'all already know about. So the racketeering has been going on long enough to get ready to crash the economies of the world. The economy of the world. So no one is exempt from this crash that is about to happen, because even a little country like Austria or South Korea, don't know if y'all know this, but the Koreans actually gave their money, they gave their gold and maybe other jewelry to their government once to help the government pay off its debt and get their government debt free. They literally did this. Is that not the cutest thing you ever heard? Um, in Austria, they have a ton of money, but they're giving a lot of it away to refugees and stuff. And there's a whole pool of it that I don't know how big that pool is that's being used for other projects. Um, so even countries who've been doing an excellent job with their money and their systems will not be exempt from this economic crash. Not sure what Switzerland's going to do. Maybe they'll be the hub for this new currency that'll be coming out. We'll see. All right. Just to go down to the bottom to the right side, the average Joe is studied by proxy sometimes. He's also studied through social media and the cell phones. I think I put by proxy just to say that he doesn't always know how he's being studied. As the Lord said on my channel, even if you have no social media profile, you still have a profile. And it's a lot like the one in China. The types of things you say online, the types of things you want to buy, Corona times, a lot of people start shopping online. That was partly to gather more data of what people would be buying, slash also cutting out those tiny little shops that you can walk in and pay cash, and the elites don't know what you bought or what you got. So they want to know everything people are doing because they view you as a cow or a pig or a chicken. All right. Then the results from their studies result in the PSYOP. I would suggest that the recent victory of Trump being allowed to get in, because they could have rigged it again, is that he gets to be the leader, and that results in him doing a big psyop over some Christians over there. That's just one example. There are others. No need to go over all the psyops. All right, and the average Joe has, yeah, we already talked about no morals. Then he doesn't care about the surveillance. I've seen people in my church say yes to the surveillance. All of that goal, the goal of that is to turn the mob into a mob that doesn't trust anyone. And you look at the faces of these people who are taking these photos and stuff. And an example of, okay, the Lord's telling me don't talk about that. But you look at their faces and they are very shifty-eyed sometimes and do not trust anyone either. And unfortunately, that's happened to me as the target. So that's basically their goal from the top, is to get everyone to this animalistic style of living. And once the economic crash hits and food scarcity is a problem, water scarcity and war, then people will be turning more animalistic. But they're working hard to get that to happen they're working hard for this mind shift to happen in advance so that people are 100% prepared for that mind shift into opening the doors to the demonic. From there, their money gets, sorry for my P word here, their money gets pissed into the system. I'm using that in the American sense of the word. It just goes everywhere and disappears, as if he was going out in the woods or something. And then that leads to poverty. And they want that to be a mental poverty as well for most of humanity, which it will be. And then they're also slaves. So they become slaves to the satanic system, sometimes in advance before the mark gets rolled out. That's kind of what this is all headed towards. So they already have these mobs of people doing the surveillance that have said yes to holding the cell phone in their hands. And in future, they're going to have to say yes to getting the chip. Otherwise, they basically will be killed by other members of this surveillance mob. So that is, they've already started rolling, with all this and getting humanity prepared. And they will be using those tracking teams to track Christians in the future. So that is a very physical component to how things will go down based on the prophecy in the book of Daniel that for a time, I think it says time, times, and half a time perhaps, but either way, that verse from Daniel that talks about the saints being given over into the hand of the Antichrist system, which is pretty much what I've tried to draw here and how it works a little bit. Um, Honestly speaking, it is my job the past 2 years or 2.5 since everything came out. It's my job to calm down and try to stay calm. So I don't sit around talking to the Lord too much about these things. But when I get an epiphany, I'm just like, oh, so that's what's happening over there. And that's annoying to me. So I just wanted to like write it all down, put it on paper, and be like, okay, that's the system. It's just this nasty old system that's getting bigger and bigger, snowballing, if you like. And one day it's just going to plop over onto humanity in a way that, as the Lord will, as the Lord said today in the message, people are going to blame the Lord for all that. Like, how could you let this happen? Or why? But I don't know why. Honestly, I don't know 100% why he lets this happen, and lets the power ball just continue to get bigger and bigger till it collapses. But for some reason, the Lord's going to wait and allow things to go quite wrong in many ways for people just to test them and see where their hearts lie. And He's allowing Satan to be used. So I was at a conference a while back, and this person had a vision while she was praying for me, and she said she saw the Lord holding a chisel and the chisel was like hitting a statue, like a sort of a type of Greek statue. And on the chisel, the name of the chisel said Satan. So the Lord was hammering on the chisel to make this beautiful statue. So that is an example of how the Lord can allow Satan to be used to perfect and beautify the saints and make us holier. So that is your sliver of hope, silver lining on all of this. All right, I think that's a mouthful. That is quite a mouthful for me for today, and hopefully satisfies you for a while, I suppose, till the Lord decides to reveal more. Thank you for any prayers. It is getting to be a harder time for me, but I don't care to talk about it too much. But thank you for any prayer. If the Lord has laid me on your heart at this time, I appreciate it. And He sees all of us, so I have to keep that in mind. Remember, God turns darkness into light. God bless. Yeah. What happened?
Let's cross it under my bed. The salt.
The salt?
The toy salt.
Okay.
So I need a flashlight, and I can go all by myself. I don't need help.
Okay.